Hello everybody. We have a game with the black pieces on our speedrun against Salah, rated 900. He puts two pawns in the center, which I'm very happy to see, and we attack one of the pawns with the knight. He defends the pawn with his knight, and now we play the Pirc's defining move, g6, intending to fianchetto. He has many different options, many different systems. People play a variety of moves in this position, and you're going to have to be ready to face so many different things. And you don't need to memorize the moves. You see, this is just a terrible move that you're happy to see. You're not going to get this at high elo because it allows you to play c6 for free, which speeds up the progress of your position. He goes bishop here, and now we can already attack the pawn. This is an idea also from the Philidor, where you play b5, hit the bishop. When it goes back, you play b4, hit the knight. When the knight moves, you win the central pawn. Very similar as in the Philidor. The only difference is the pawn there is back home, and e5 is included. So it's super similar ideas. We're just, adjusting move by move for the small differences. So instead of hanging the central pawn, he decides to sack a piece for two pawns, which is worse, probably. So now we just develop our bishop with force because his bishop's hanging. Whereas if you block with the knight, totally acceptable move, but his bishop's not hanging. So he defends the bishop with the queen. But I'm going to force the issue and control the b5 square so his queen can't use it by playing a6. If he takes, I can just take with the queen, offer a queen trade, up a piece. Everything's great for me. I'm once again threatening the bishop, so he takes and we take. No big deal. And we have one knight and he has two pawns. So you might say, well, two pawns is decent, but a knight is pretty good itself. So let's activate our strongest piece and see what he does about this. If he gives us the queen trade, that piece may really show. He plays c4, denying it and gaining space. Interesting. If I give him a check, he'll just develop his bishop. So let's fianchetto our queen, which is really cool because we don't have a light square bishop. But if we did, we would love it on b7 as a powerhouse combining with the knight. So we'll just use our queen for that purpose for the time being. He retreats the knight to defend the pawn, which was hit twice. Fair enough. Now we could just develop a minor piece, but with a threat. I could have fianchettoed, but as it doesn't create an immediate threat, I chose to go with the knight. Just my preference. I don't care that it blocks the queen. Now that he defended this pressure, I can always move the knight. Also, it might induce this pawn push, which weakens dark squares. So now when I fianchetto, it will be even stronger. And my knight can use these squares as well. But if I do a one move hit on the queen, he defends both of these squares. And what am I doing with my knight? It's kind of trapped. If I go here, this pawn's not hanging and he can kick it again. If I coordinate, he can kick it again. It's kind of like playing games a little bit. Now that he moved here, I could go back home and plant it on c5, which is a beautiful outpost. I like that option a lot. If I go here and he kicks me, well, I have this square, but if I go here and he defends this, let's say he just goes home and then kicks me, well, then I have this check. So wait, if I go here, how does he defend this and this? Moves as a knight. And then my knight's kind of weird. So I know it may look weird, but I'm going to bring it back. And I'm going to reposition it this way. So he castles. I'm not going to do it immediately. I'm going to fianchetto, castle first. Or maybe I'll go knight bd7 then to support the squares, and then castle. Okay, so he wastes time playing b3, which I'm happy to see. Now we bring our knight, and now we have a really good setup for our pieces. This knight will sit well here. If he ever threatens to kick it, like with a3, we can play a5. So he counters our bishop. Let's castle so that our bishop's protected and that we don't fall prey to tactics. This knight's going to have a good square pressuring the center, but he immediately plays e5. Well, I'm going to take that with this knight. So we take a pawn. He takes a piece, and when we take a piece, he could take a pawn. But it doesn't work out tactically for him because he took a piece, now we take a piece. He doesn't have to take this pawn, and he should not take this pawn. Because once he does, he walks into this x-ray. So the first thing you should be thinking is, can I move my knight and skewer him? And the answer is yes. But you don't want to move your knight to an undefended square where he can at the very least counter it. You might as well move it to a defended square, such as d7, which also hits the queen and can head towards c5 in the future. And so if he has a knight and we have a knight on the same squares, respectively, that means that our extra piece is this bishop beaming down this diagonal, and he doesn't have a counterpart or any compensation for it. So how can you justify losing control over all of these squares? You can't. Little laser beam just crossing through the geometry. He moves his queen, and we'll snatch the rook. He takes back, and we could place our knight here and get our queen back in the game, a different avenue. Now that he put all his pawns on light, he's blocking the queen's vision since it's on light. We can get it to dark or just shift it to the light set of squares on the king side, which are not controlled by pawns. So we have options, and he does not. He'll probably... Okay. I was not going to say hang the pawn. But now we get to infiltrate this way on the dark squares. Okay, so maybe he did that so he can activate his rook with tempo, but there's nothing on this file, and we're just going to move the queen closer to his position. Now you could move it here and put pressure on the pawn, but I'd rather just keep the pressure on the knight, on this pawn. I don't need more material. I'm up a rook at this point because I converted my bishop for the rook. So right now he has one pawn for the rook. That's not so much compensation. Okay, he takes the second pawn. Now he has two pawns for the rook. He's hitting my knight. We get a knight, he gets a knight, and he gets two connected passers that he's happy and excited about. That's a thing. We could also move our knight, and his knight's still hanging. So that's a thing. I think I prefer that and move my knight closer to create checkmate threats. So now his knight's just hanging. He might counter our queen, but he might run into trouble as well. Also, his knight defends his pawn. We could always take his only asset, which are these two connected passers. That's white's only asset, only win condition, only hope for black to mess up, and somehow that pulls through. And if you take one of them, their strength goes by more than half. So he pins us in a weird way. A little bit odd. Maybe it makes sense though. So let's just move one of our two rooks and attack his queen. Doesn't matter which rook. I know this one looks weird, but it's fine. If it looks weird, then just move the other one. I don't feel like explaining why I picked this rook. It doesn't matter. Just pick whichever rook you want. The point is to hit the queen. If he wants to keep the pin, he has to stay on this diagonal, but then my rook can infiltrate. It also disconnects from the knight, so he can't defend the knight and keep the pin. He also can't defend the knight unless he goes here or here. He hits the queen. I hit the rook. Weird tactics. Make my brain explode. But let's let him decide what he wants to do. I don't want to think too much without knowing exactly what his move is. Okay, so he keeps the pin, but doesn't that hang the knight? Oh, I see. I go here, he goes here, and then I checkmate him. That works for me. If he goes here, he probably thinks I have to move the queen and he wins the knight back, but I give this check, he has to take, and I checkmate him. He might now be realizing that. He might just resign. And you can see how which rook you put here has no bearing on anything. We could do this and win the queen, but let's take this with check first. He has to go here, so there's no reason for him to think. Again, we could win the queen. Let's just throw that in. He can't take back because of checkmate, and checkmate. So that was a pretty bad game. Let's see if we can get another one. So this guy's rated 964 provisional, and he goes down a French pawn structure. Okay, even worse, a small pawn center. Because he didn't develop actively, I'm going to play f4 and gain further control over e5. He develops his knight and attacks a pawn that's defended. I'm going to continue with my development towards the center. I'm always considering when I should kick any of his knights. I want to just develop my bishop though in castle. So let's defend the pawn that he's attacking with his knight. He could potentially go here, but we'll just let him take it while he spends his third knight move to capture it. He plays g6, preparing fianchetto, weakening his dark squares a little bit. Without too much thought, let's just castle. And I like white's position. Very simple. We could have the same position, let's say, with the pawn back, but I really think it's stronger with the pawn here. Of course, it blocks your bishop temporarily, but these are temporary measures to control the center more permanently. So he doesn't fianchetto, he goes to the side and pressures an f pawn, which is well defended. So I don't care about that move. We now could protect our bishop if we want from this idea by c3 or bishop development. Let's play c3 and just really shut this knight's pressure and moves. Protect our bishop, we open our queen, we cement our center. Can't be too bad. Because why give him the bishop, if we don't have to? And we can make a good move in the process, so. We just have a nice solid position with more space, bigger center. And we're even castled first while having that center, which takes time to put pawns there. So he finally strikes at our center, but this generally doesn't end well when you're second to the party. because we always have the option of calculating, do we take, do we push, and we get to pick which best for us. Taking looks playable, but not the best. You know how I love to push e5 and gain the space and put the wedge pawn there and create this dark pawn chain and attack the king. So that's what we're going to do. That is how I like to play. That's what makes the most sense to me. Because if you could get this here and stop him from putting a piece on these two squares, why not? He also can't put pieces on these squares because those are his pawns. So you can see as you highlight them, the squares are very limited for him. He has to move the knight. He's probably considering if he should move it forward. But I'm not convinced it's fully stable there. It might get attacked many times and he might lose a pawn. In any case, we have more space and his bishop is bad. So he goes here, but this looks like the exact square you don't want to go to, because if I play h3, that is a trapped knight. So that's game over. And we didn't do anything but create advanced French pawn structure. We put our bishop where we always do, our knight where we always do, we castle like we always do, and then he just traps a knight, like just randomly loses the game. Chess. And I feel like a lot of you guys make chess out to harder than it needs to be when you're at the low elos. You could definitely get higher, and you don't need to do crazy studying or anything like that. Of course, it helps. So he sacks his bishop. So now that makes room for the knight, but once I take the bishop, I cover that square so his knight's trapped again, and now he loses 2 pieces instead of 1. That's why he's provisional. He's definitely going down in rating at the moment. And he goes to this nice fork square, but it's covered, and that's just 2 pieces for 1 pawn. And that pawn is the f pawn, which we don't want anyway, because it's in the way of our pieces. We want to mate him. So now our rook's staring at his king. So we'd make the very natural knight g5 threatening rook takes. And now, since the knight vacates the square, we can line the queen up for checkmates. So he should resign so that you guys can go eat lunch or dinner or breakfast. Or second breakfast. I mean, he can defend it, but he doesn't, because why would you? Let's take with the knight, since he's attacking the knight. The rook x-ray discoveries. There's a fork. It looks terrible. The pitchfork, it's game over. And I mean, okay, he hangs the queen on a different square with check. How could you think that square is safe? You see, it's almost like they don't know how the pieces move. Because if you know the knight moves like that, it's very hard for your brain not to see that. And my opponent left the game. But for some reason, I only have to wait 16 seconds. But the other guy made me wait 70 seconds, which is much more unreasonable. 16 seconds is much more reasonable, but 1-0. Let's claim that win. Let's go up in elo a little bit. And let's click analysis. I mean, as soon as you see e6, you should be happy. You should be happy because they're already cramping themselves for no reason, because they could play e5 on move 1. No one's stopping them. It's allowed, it's legal, but they don't do it. so that's why we have all zeros and 95%, because this guy doesn't um, fight for his territory. He lets me take it. He blocks his own bishops, whereas mine has one full scope and one I limited on purpose with the knowledge this pawn's going to disappear in the future. Center and development. Center and development. King safety and development. Center and development. Improving for free. Game over. The most simple thing that's ever happened. +5. Super easy. You don't have to know anything about chess or theory or calculation training. You just make these simple moves and you can beat people. You see me do it all the time. So there's hope. Submit your rapid games in my Discord. Good luck in your chess.